Hey folks, we are going to be running through the updated version of the Stats and Standings plugin from CDSN. I know a lot of people already have it with the CSV functionality, but we now have an automatic link to SimRacer Hub. So if you open up your zip file, now there are two separate plugins, the traditional Stats CSV, which was the first iteration of this, where you can basically show anything you can put into a CSV, whether that's point standings, statistics, driver's favorite, dog, your grocery list, a schedule for the season, anything at all that's in a CSV, you can get it up into your overlay and on screen. But really what the main purpose was for standings, league standings, season standings, and things like that. And most leagues are pulling from SimRacer Hub, and so now we have a direct link to them. So there are two plugins. You probably, install the one you want to use. I have them both put in, and it's the usual process. So we'll go into SDK, go into your options, find the plugins manager here under the overlay section, and open that up. You're going to come down to the bottom left and click import, and that's going to bring in those two stats plugins. And then just like usual, let's see if we can find the SimRacer Hub one. Just like usual, you do not need to touch anything in the first couple tabs. There are some styling options like usual. However, this one in particular is very touchy about location because of the way that it needs to expand left and up as you add more drivers or add more columns. So it is actually hard anchored to the bottom right of the screen. This is adjustable if you really need to. You can come into the update tab. It's hard coded here around line 30 or so, and you can see the styling here. Now if you change any of these, especially if you try to anchor it somewhere else on screen or change that bottom right anchor for it to expand up and left, I cannot guarantee that it will always do what it's supposed to do, but it is set up again to expand out of that bottom right. Not impossible to move it around. You might have to ask me for help, and we might have to experiment a little bit, but just because of the way this one expands, it works a lot better if you leave it in the bottom right. But you can change fonts and everything just like usual there in the styling tab. And then you're going to want to add in that component from the remote control. You're going to click add to remote control, and again you're going to do this twice for this one for the SimRacer Hub standings plugin and one for the stats CSV plugin. If I can find it in my, I think it's just called stats here, and add that remote, and you're going to get these two right here. This SimRacer Hub standings is the bigger one, and as you go through, there's a couple things you can toggle on and off. So first you got your hide and show. You can set whatever title you want. You can set whatever number of drivers. Again, this is going to be the top number of drivers, the way the standings come in, sorted by position. You're going to have your season ID. And why don't we go ahead and kind of cover what that is. So if you have a SimRacer Hub league, and you pull up the season standings for that league, way up here at the top in the URL, there is something called a season ID, usually 5 numbers. You're going to copy that out and put that here in this box, in the season ID box. And that is what's going to connect you to SimRacer Hub. And the first time you hit show after you've opened SDK, so the first time you're doing it in that session, it's going to take maybe 20 full seconds for it to connect and get the data. But once it does, it stores the data locally so that it actually loads very fast after that. So this is something you're going to want to do pre-race. Get that season ID and then hit show. And again, the first time you do this, there might be a long delay, 10-20 seconds, before it's able to scrape that data off of the SimRacer Hub site, get it stored locally with all of the columns we have here to toggle on and off. But then it'll be there and fast from there. And then again, you can always change what you want to see, the number of drivers. This is a 14 car playoff field in this example, so I'm going to set it at 14. I have all of these columns. These are the standard columns kind of in a driver standings data set from SimRacer Hub. If your league has it set up so that the web page does not display one of these, for example, some leagues don't show stage points if they don't do stages. Some leagues don't show provisionals if they don't do provisionals, etc., etc. Those data sets won't be available even if you toggle them on if the league doesn't have them turned on to be there in those standings, because there's just no way to scrape that page if it's not there. But most of these are here. I tend to stick with just gap from first, and then something that adds a little flavor. So whether that's podiums, wins, top fives, top tens, I don't think you need all of them, but find what works for you. And then at the same time, we still have the CSV based one. That's the other plugin, and that lets you pull up that CSV file, whatever you do. I like to put schedules in here, especially as I can update it with the winner as we go, or any other stats and things I just want to show. Whether maybe you're doing a charity fundraiser, you could throw some stats in here or some information about that. And just as before, this is any data at all. There's no limitation. The only field that has any type of limitation is the image field. Whatever column you name image will be placed on the right side there. As you can see, these track images are, and you do have the option to tweak their size because how big your fonts are and how many things you have in your list. You might need to tweak this. So for example, right here, doing 120 by 120, way too big, does not fit with the number of races I have. And so I have to squish that down a little bit. And you just kind of have to play with your data set to get it to line up. But if you're someone who has been trying to pull in SimRacer Hub stats and standings forever and not been able to do it without copying and pasting or exporting CSVs and importing them, or exporting that special points override and importing it into SDK, which works sometimes and not always, this is what you've been waiting for. I know it's what I've been waiting for. Super easy. You save your project file. You won't even need to update the season ID during the season for that league. And it's just super informative to know when guys are battling hard or drivers are side by side, who's in it to win it, who's up against the wall on the points perspective, who already has 6 wins on the season and is really just going for the win and has nothing to lose. Can really add a lot of context to your battling and driver narratives throughout the race. So I hope you guys like this. This is a free upgrade to anyone that already has the stats plugin when it was just the CSV option. And then going forward, anyone who gets this will get both together for the $20. So hope you guys enjoy it. This has been one of my favorites to use in my broadcast now that it's available.